It was midnight by the Han River, under a sky that had ripped open, unleashing a merciless downpour. In the darkness, pierced only by a flickering street lamp, a man was crawling through the thick, cold mud. His Italian leather shoes, worth thousands, were long gone, swallowed by the sludge. His designer suit, now caked in filth, clung to him like a leaden shroud. His breath came in ragged gasps, a sound that cut through the rhythm of the rain. He was weeping. No. It was more than that. It was the primal scream of a caged animal. In the distance, sirens wailed, and the flashing red and blue lights bled through the storm. As police officers emerged from their cars, weapons drawn, the man didn't run. He simply collapsed. He wasn't holding a weapon. In his trembling hand was a single sheet of paper, soaked and torn in two, a marriage certificate. As an officer snapped handcuffs onto his wrists, the cold click of the metal was met with a bizarre whisper from the man's lips. It wasn't a plea for help, or a cry of innocence. It was a sigh, a deep, chilling sigh of pure relief, like a man who had just clawed his way out of hell. His expression seemed to say, "Ah, finally. I can breathe." Who was this man? And why, in the very moment he was being arrested for murder, did he look so utterly, terrifyingly serene? Our story begins exactly 1 year before that strange, rain-soaked arrest. We're in one of Seoul's most exclusive hotels, under the blinding glare of a crystal chandelier. It was the wedding day of Min Jae Kong and Soo Hyun Oh. The bride, 48. The groom, 29. The 19-year age difference was the most delicious gossip the guests could ask for. Over glasses of champagne, they whispered. He must have hit the jackpot, some sneered. A classic gold digger, others murmured. To them, Min Jae was just another handsome young opportunist who had successfully latched onto a wealthy older woman. In his tailored tuxedo, standing next to Soo Hyun, he looked like a perfectly crafted jewel. But what no one saw, was the way Soo Hyun's fingernails dug deep into the soft flesh of his inner arm as she linked her arm through his. Min Jae's brow twitched, almost imperceptibly, but he held his pained, plastic smile. It wasn't the smile of a happy groom. It was the practiced grin of a prized pet, desperate to please its owner. After the wedding, they moved into a sprawling penthouse overlooking the river. People called it a palace in the sky, but to Min Jae, it was a perfectly soundproofed cage. The heavy thud of the front door closing was the sound of his world being sealed off. As soon as they were inside, Soo Hyun began her corrections. The angle of his tie knot wasn't to her liking, she would yank it loose, nearly choking him, before retying it herself. Her touch held no affection. It was the possessiveness of a child playing with a doll, twisting its limbs into whatever position she desired. Min Jae, darling, she'd whisper, sipping wine at the dinner table. You're nothing without me, you know that, don't you? The only reason people treat you with respect out there is because of me. Her soft voice was a sweet poison, slowly and methodically eroding his self-worth. Every charge on the corporate card he used for drinks with friends was texted to her phone in real time. She needed to know who he met, what they talked about. He couldn't even wear a pair of his own underwear, everything, down to the last thread, had to be chosen by her. Min Jae wasn't always this powerless. He was once a capable personal trainer, a young man who knew the value of a hard day's work. But his father's business collapsed, burying his family in debt. Just as the loan sharks were closing in, Soo Hyun appeared like a guardian angel. She paid off every single cent they owed. At the time, Min Jae thought it was love. But it was the moment a golden leash was being fastened around his neck. After the marriage, he tried to earn his own money. He secretly looked for part-time jobs, called old colleagues. But every attempt was crushed. Soo Hyun was already monitoring all of his financial activity, using his social security number. She had preemptively contacted anyone he might reach out to. When he went for an interview at a small cafe, the owner took a phone call mid-interview, his face went pale, and he immediately threw Min-jae out. When he returned home, Soo-hyun was waiting with a cold smile. She tossed a bank book in front of him. It showed that every penny of the emergency cash he'd secretly saved had been withdrawn, and transferred to an account in her name. "Don't act like a little rat, Min-jae," she cooed. "Have you still not learned? The only thing you truly own is that pretty body I bought." The breaking point came the day her family descended upon them. Soo-hyun's mother and brothers didn't even say hello before her mother picked up a glass of water and hurled it in Min-jae's face. As the cold water dripped down his cheek, he was too stunned to even wipe it away. "You thief!" his mother-in-law shrieked, her voice echoing through the vast living room. "Was my daughter's money what you wanted? Are you even human?" Soo-hyun just watched, arms crossed, a look of amusement on her face. You might think this is a scene straight out of a soap opera, the poor son-in-law being tormented by the wealthy in-laws. But then, something truly bizarre happened. As his mother-in-law grabbed him by the collar, she brought her face close to his ear. Her voice, once a roar, dropped to a terrified whisper, no louder than a mosquito's buzz. "Please, you have to run," she breathed. "My daughter is a monster. If you don't leave, you'll die, too." For a second, Min-jae thought he was hearing things. But the look in her eyes was one of pure, unadulterated terror. The old rumors suddenly flooded his mind, the rumors that Soo-hyun's 2 previous husbands had died in a mysterious accident and vanished without a trace. In that moment, he knew. It wasn't just gossip. Soo-hyun's cunning was beyond imagination. To complete his social isolation, she launched a public relations war against him. At every gathering, she'd put on a sad face and confide in her friends. "Oh, Min-jae got into my wallet again, he's so young, he just loves to party. I don't know what to do." They would offer their sympathies to her face, then turn around and shoot Min-jae looks of pure contempt. He wanted to scream the truth, but who would believe the words of a kept man, a boy toy? Even his own friends began to avoid him. His calls would go to voicemail, or they'd hang up with a quick excuse. One finally told him to his face, "Dude, just because you married into money doesn't mean you can act like this. Get a grip." In the narrative Soo-hyun had so carefully crafted, Min-jae was nothing more than an immature, greedy, irredeemable piece of trash. With the whole world pointing a finger at him, he was now utterly alone. Standing in the middle of that enormous penthouse, he felt like he was in solitary confinement. And then, the fateful night arrived. In the heavy silence of the study, Soo-hyun slid a thick stack of documents across the desk toward him. It was an application for a massive life insurance policy. The sole beneficiary, of course, was Soo-hyun Oh. "Sign it," she said, pressing a fountain pen into his hand. "Think of it as a symbol of our love." Min-jae's hand trembled. He knew, with a primal certainty, that signing this paper would be signing his own death warrant. "No," he whispered, putting the pen down. "I can't. Not this." In an instant, Soo-hyun's elegant features twisted into a mask of pure rage. "You dare defy me? After everything I've done for you?" She grabbed a crystal ashtray from the desk and hurled it against the wall. It shattered with a piercing crack. But she didn't stop there. She began tearing at her own clothes, messing up her own hair, and then, she raked her nails across her own face, drawing blood. Screaming, she grabbed the phone, and what came out of her mouth was his worst nightmare. "Help me. Please, help. My husband is trying to kill me for my money." Terrified, Min-jae stumbled backward. With a crazed look in her eyes, Soo-hyun lunged at him. A struggle ensued. He was only trying to calm her down, to stop her. Please, stop. Don't do this, he begged, but his pleas were drowned out by her frantic screams. As they wrestled, pushing and pulling, Soo-hyun's foot slipped on a shard of broken glass. Her body went airborne for a moment, and then a sickening, dull thud filled the room. Thump. She had hit her head on the corner of the marble table and collapsed to the floor. A pool of dark red blood began to spread instantly across the white carpet. An absolute silence descended on the study, broken only by Min-jae's own ragged breathing. Soo-hyun didn't move. With a trembling hand, he reached down, placing his fingers under her nose. Nothing. She wasn't breathing. It was an accident. It was a clear and obvious accident. But a terrifying panorama of what would happen next flashed through his mind. The young, broke husband who murdered his wealthy older wife. After all the lies Soo-hyun had spread, he knew with horrifying certainty that no one in the world would ever believe he was innocent. In his state of panic, Min-jae's eyes fell on a small object on the corner of the desk. It was a microcassette recorder, one Soo-hyun often used to secretly monitor him. As if possessed, he pressed the play button. Soo-hyun's familiar voice filled the air, but the words she spoke froze the blood in his veins. This weekend, I'll take Min-jae to the country house, the recording said. If I tamper with the brake fluid beforehand, it will look like an accident. I'll say he found out I was leaving him and tried to kill us both. It's the perfect story. After the insurance money comes in, maybe I'll buy a yacht. It wasn't just a stray thought. She was rehearsing. She was planning his murder like she was practicing lines for a play. It was then that Min-jae understood. If he hadn't refused to sign those papers tonight, the cold body on the floor would not have been hers, it would have been his. He shoved the recorder into his pocket. It was his only chance. He had to run. There was no time to stage the scene, no time to create an alibi. He just grabbed the recorder and the torn marriage certificate, and fled into the storm. And so we return to the beginning, to that muddy riverbank. Min-jae was loaded into a police car, soaked to the bone. Sitting in the interrogation room, he didn't plead the fifth. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the recorder, which he had carefully wrapped in plastic to protect it from the rain. He placed it on the table in front of the detective. Then, he spoke, his voice calm and steady. I didn't kill her. But, she was about to kill me. When the detectives played the tape, the air in the room grew heavy and cold. Soo-hyun's chilling, two-faced voice echoed off the sterile walls, laying her monstrous plan bare. The young husband she claimed to love so much was nothing more than a disposable product to her, the most expensive insurance policy she had ever owned. And now we understand the reason for his sigh of relief at his arrest. It wasn't the relief of a killer. It was the relief of a survivor, knowing he would never have to return to that suffocating penthouse, that gilded prison, ever again. To him, even a jail cell was a safer harbor. The trial became a media circus. It began with sensational headlines, Gold Digger murders wealthy wife. But when the recording was made public, the narrative flipped on its head, a psychopath's diary of abuse. Evidence poured into the courtroom detailing the years of control and torture Soo-hyun had inflicted on Min-jae. Even her own mother took the stand, weeping as she defended her son-in-law. My daughter, she was a demon, she cried. Please, let this poor boy go. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. In the end, acknowledging the extreme circumstances, the court gave Min-jae a lenient sentence for involuntary manslaughter. He did not appeal. He said he would serve his time. It wasn't penance for causing Soo-hyun's death, but for the moment he sold his own soul for the allure of her money. Time passed, and Min-jae began his life in prison. He was in a small cell, barely big enough to stretch out in. There were no chandeliers, no plush sofas, no floor-to-ceiling windows with a river view. And yet, in that tiny room, for the first time in years, Min-jae could sleep through the night. He no longer had to walk on eggshells. He could wear what he wanted, eat what he was given, and simply exist. For him, this cramped cell was his true penthouse. Speaking to an old friend through the cold glass of the visitation room, he said, "It's funny, isn't it? I couldn't breathe in a 10,000 square foot home. But in here, I can finally exhale." Behind his bittersweet smile, you could feel the immense weight of the hell he had endured for the past year. On the day of his release, no one was waiting for him outside the prison gates. A light rain was falling. Min-jae pulled up his collar and took his first steps back into the world. Legally, he was a free man, but the world's gaze was still cold. In the comments sections of online articles, there were still people who called him the lucky killer. Society's prejudices don't change easily. As he stood at a crosswalk, he looked down at his wrist. The multi-thousand-dollar luxury watch Soo-hyun had chained to it was gone. But then he heard it, a phantom sound in his ear. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. It was the sound of the watch she had given him. Or maybe, it was a warning, sent from beyond the grave. "You're mine forever." Min-jae shook his head violently, and as the light turned green, he disappeared into the anonymous crowd. He looked free, but something about the way he walked made him look like a man who was still being hunted. We so often chase after the glittering things we can see, and turn a blind eye to the truths hidden just beneath the surface. The label of gold digger that was slapped onto Min-jae was the perfect camouflage for the predator that Soo-hyun truly was. A leash made of solid gold may look beautiful, but in the end, it is still a weapon designed to choke the life out of you. Tonight, I ask you to think about the person by your side. Are you trapped in a cage of control and obsession, disguised as love? I truly hope that the sigh of relief Min-jae breathed in that muddy field is one you never have to experience. And as we close our story, we hope that Min-jae, somewhere in the noise of the city, can finally escape the phantom ticking and find a life that is truly his own. The magnificent penthouse now sits empty, its master gone. Prospective buyers walk through its silent halls, awestruck. "Wow, look at that view," they say. "I'd give anything to live here." They will never know. They'll never know that those beautiful glass walls were actually the bars of an inescapable prison. And they'll never know that sometimes, at night, an unseen shadow still paces the living room, waiting for someone who will never return. The truth is always beyond what we can see. So tonight, as you look out your own window, perhaps you'll wonder, behind which of those glittering city lights is another Min-jae, weeping in silence.